The Guangzhou Charge opened up their Atlanta homestand weekend with an upset win over the favored Shanghai Dragons, taking the match 3-1. It all started on Nepal, where Guangzhou brought out a nifty 3 DPS counter composition, which we will be breaking down in this video. Guangzhou, fully expecting Shanghai to commit to 3 DPS, rolled out with a 3 tank variant featuring Roadhog, Winston, and D.Va. Other teams have also experimented with similar compositions, and it's pretty clear that the Charge feel like this comp is such a hard counter to the 3 DPS composition that they didn't even mind putting Happy, who certainly proved that he can take on DM in a Widow duel throughout the rest of the match, on an uncomfortable pick in D.Va. So what's the premise behind this composition? Well, first off, we have to identify one of the biggest flaws of the 3 DPS composition of Shanghai, which is its inability to brawl on the objective. The Widowmaker wants to play an off angle further away from the fight, as does the Ana. Being the only tank in the composition, Wrecking Ball is the sole hero who can realistically relieve pressure on the objective. Now, Guangzhou's composition is perfectly designed to abuse these flaws. It features Sombra, D.Va, and Winston, all of whom can take turns zoning DM and Luffy out of the fight, neutralizing their angles and slowly choking the dragons out of map control. Meanwhile, the Roadhog can roam around and, most importantly, pressure the objective practically on his own. This makes life miserable for Guangzhou, who is limited in the offensive maneuvers he can make with Sleep, Hook, and Hack essentially forming a minefield of threats. He also can't win against Roadhog on the point, especially if the Roadhog gets help. Meanwhile, Shu and Chara simply have to survive, take cover, and wait for their team to clear out the rest of the map, making it harder for Ding to find kills. Now that we have the theoretic part out of the way, let's take a look at how the Charge put this into practice. Winning the first fight is usually going to be a challenge for the Charge, as the 3 DPS composition essentially has 30 seconds to poke them down before the objective unlocks. Even so, Guangzhou doesn't want to hide and let DM roam freely. They opt to roll out on top, scout DM's position, and immediately try to pressure him away. This forces Luffy and DM to split, Happy pressures out the Widowmaker's grapple, and Nero goes for a nice little flank here, catching DM on his retreat. Despite the fact that Guangzhou secures this kill, they still lose the fight. As previously mentioned, the supports have to use cover and avoid Ding's damage, and they can't really make a move forward until Envy has revealed his position. While Shu's positioning in this instance is decent, Chara is caught way out of position and donates a free kill back to Shanghai. Losing his peel buddy, Shu also ends up falling shortly after. It also doesn't help that Nero, who found Envy's translocator, stays to camp it, hoping that someone can force him out, but ultimately ends up wasting precious time. Had Chara played a little more defensively and respected Ding and Envy and survived for another 4 to 5 seconds, Nero and the other tanks could have migrated to point and potentially closed this fight out. Now for this next part, buckle in. In traditional 3 DPS fashion, the rest of the stage essentially devolves into one long, never-ending skirmish. For the retake, the premise remains the same. Guangzhou first tries to path through the Mega Room as it provides them more cover and makes the migration to the point easier. Supports can potentially set up in a position of cover while also maintaining LOS onto the point. However, Ding hits a nice concussive blast to interrupt this pathing, putting a bit of a wrench into the retaking plan. Even so, Hotba, Happy, and Rio cross, find DM, and jump at him to put pressure and clear the high ground. Having shoved Shanghai off the main high ground, the Charge wait for the next rotation of their gap closers and go for another jump, while Nero makes his way onto the point from main. Take a look here at how the Charge, within 2 cooldown rotations, have gained back a ton of map control. This also opens the map up for Hotbutt to sneak in a hack onto Coma, potentially ending the fight right then and there. However, the Shanghai main support does well to survive here and pops his Valk. To relieve pressure, Envy EMPs both dive tanks of the Charge, but since they're simply jumping for space and not kill hunting, Shu can still save them both with LOS from main. This immediately negates one of the most powerful ultimates on the board for the Dragons, while Luffy, who for some inexplicable reason chooses to drop and challenge Nero while his sleep dart is still on cooldown, deservingly receives a ticket back to spawn. DM and Ding do their best to salvage the situation, with DM picking off Rio and Ding barraging Shu in main. But still, as mentioned, Guangzhou simply does not stand a chance on the objective, leading to the point flipping before the fight even ends. An absolute nightmare scenario for Shanghai. Anytime you end up using 5 ultimates for an essentially even trade while losing the point, you are going to be in trouble. At this point, the Charge have lost high ground control, but they can still bunker up on the point and wait for Hotba to find an EMP angle. Even though DM finds another kill, Happy gets slept and Ding is cleaning him up as well, Nero is still here to anchor on the point and do as he pleases. He finds 2 quick kills and then pushes Guangzhou into a corner with his whole hog, relieving a ton of pressure. With kills going back and forth and the fight not having a convincing winner, DM rushes back into the fight as Tracer, but the Charge maintain objective control. Amid all this chaos, Char once again picks a suboptimal position. Instead of allowing Nero to patrol the point and taking a hiding position in stables where he would be much safer from Ding, he moves onto the point and gets punished, dying with his beat. Nero also gets hit by an anti-nade and dies. However, despite these 2 kills, both Happy and Rio are still alive, and they can also relieve point pressure for long enough if they can get to use their ultimates before Envy takes them off the board with his EMP. Thankfully for the Charge, Ding opts to go for a solo barrage on Shu in main, giving his team false confidence that the fight is all but secure, with 3 quick kills in the bank. Because of this, MV doesn't use his EMP immediately, leading to both dive tanks of the Charge being able to use their ultimates, and clutching out the fight despite Envy cancelling Char's beat. As such, Shanghai blows another EMP barrage rotation without securing the fight. Had the Dragons not split and simply EMP'd the tanks on the point, they would have certainly regained point control. Instead, they have now dug themselves a hole that's almost impossible to get out of, entering one-fight territory against Hotba's EMP and without any great engagement tools of their own. While the Charge dive tanks are challenging for map control on the high ground, Nero and Hotba team up to single-handedly take the pharmacy combo out of the fight. Ding gets hacked and Nero hits yet another incredible hook onto Coma. Even though the Charge completely wastes their nano boost on Rio here, there is no longer any time for the Dragons to poke down their opponents. They simply have to throw their bodies onto the point, which is Guangzhou's domain. Nero continues to clean up on the point, and had Chara not inexplicably jumped onto Guangzhou's mines, the fight would have likely been even cleaner and would have ended even faster. Either way, Guangzhou manages to clean the fight up and they secure the point. The Charge ran the same strategy on Shrine, but ran into a little more trouble, with Shanghai grabbing 99% before Guangzhou eventually flipped the point. At that time, the Dragons smartly transitioned away from 3 DPS, opting for 3-3, and essentially turning the point pressure edge in their favor. This was a smart move since regaining map control with 3 DPS, especially on a map like Shrine, would be extremely difficult against what the Charge are running, since they would be choked out of all map control and finding good angles would be almost impossible. Still, the Charge managed their ult economy for the rest of the round very well, forced Ding onto an uncomfortable hero in Brigitte, and in the one fight where the Dragons actually built up some ultimates, which was the last fight of the round, the Charge still had Hotba's EMP at their disposal to close the show. So there you have it, an interesting little wrinkle from the side of the Charge. Most teams choose to counter the 3 DPS composition with a Brigitte over Roadhog and a Moira over the Ana here, a comp that also has an advantage in the brawl department over the 3 DPS. But if you have a strong Roadhog player on the roster, which the Charge clearly has with Nero, this composition certainly has viability and potential against 3 DPS heavy teams as well. Thanks for watching, guys. To keep supporting this type of content and the channel, hit the magical subscribe and like buttons. Also, make sure you hop onto the Mineral Miners Discord to join the community and potentially take advantage of some coaching. You can find the link in the description box down below.